So 29 years ago, when I got married, I suddenly found out that I didn't know how to do anything. My wife told me how to do everything. And in 5 days, we'll celebrate our 28th wedding anniversary, and she's still telling me how to do everything, including just now. So thank you very much, Stacy. You know, I wasn't going to bring her into the conversation, but she just kind of brought herself into it. So, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Scott and Jack, our Board of Education, all of you teachers, administrators, custodial staff, maintenance team, coaches, everybody that has anything to do with the school system for being here today and for giving your careers to education. I have a large background in education with my parents and now my son, and education is very important. I want to introduce a couple of people before I get started. To my left, Emilio, stand up. Emilio Harufe. To my right, Kim McMaster. Kim, stand up, wave to the crowd. They will be my teammates today for this presentation. My favorite college class, bar none, was Advanced Composition and Literature. And the reason it was such a favorite of mine at Ohio University was because the teacher in the class presented a poem, presented a short story, and then we as students read it and then discussed what it meant to us. And the beauty of the class was a short story or a poem or even a line in a poem could mean one thing to me, it could mean a completely different thing to you, and something way different to you, and none of us were wrong. It was how we perceived it, it was what we took in, it's what it made us feel. My goal today, in my time here on the stage, is to present to you 12 words that we all know, that we all use in our everyday life, and hopefully in some way guide us. And then with those words, pictures that I have taken and stories behind those pictures. And what I hope is when you see the words, when you listen to my words, and when you see the pictures, is that you find somewhere in your mind's eye a little bit about yourself. It connects to you in some way different than it connected to me, and some way different than the reason that I'm using the picture or the words to describe, you know, how we go about life, and what we look for in life, and the good that we all should look for. I'm a big believer in looking for good, and hopefully that's what my presentation does for you today. And it's really my strong desire. I cannot emphasize this enough. It is my strong desire that when I'm done, you don't say to yourself, man, that's 25 minutes of my life I can't get back. All right? So we're going to start with the first word, and I need to get my clicker. See, that's where I need my wife to tell me not to forget this. Andrew. It worked in rehearsal. Inspiration. Everything that we do in life, at some point in time, there is a genesis moment or a seed that was planted that grows into something that we nurture and we love. There's been an inspiration. I started taking pictures. You'll hear Emilio and Kim. They're going to play music behind my presentation. That's why they're here. I started taking pictures 8 years ago. The inspiration for me taking pictures was this guy right here. There's a lot in this picture. This is my dad. This was in September of 2014. We knew he was dying. As a matter of fact, we would say goodbye to him 2 months later. But I would take my dad on these road trips. We called them Ron and Ron on the road. My dad was losing his memory. His body was betraying him. I would take him to places that were important in his life. And I would take pictures of my dad we'd go back to the house, back to the kitchen table, sit with my mom, and because of digital photography, we could look at those pictures. And my dad would smile and he would remember when. In this picture, he's wearing his flannel pajamas because he's not strong enough to buckle a belt or snap a pair of pants. He's sitting on a garbage can because he's not strong enough to stand for very long. And he's on a baseball field where he spent his life coaching kids. My dad was a proud man. I would take him to the house that he built. He was a carpenter. I'd take him to the kitchen cabinets that he put in for a family. And I've lost my presentation. There we go. And we would take these pictures, and because of my dad, and because of the time that we spent together, I became a photographer. Now this is a picture of him on the ball field. You can't see it because it's pretty washed out, but there were lines on the field. And even in the end of my father's life, when he could barely shuffle, he would shuffle to walk because it was hard for him to lift his feet. And if there's a coach in the audience, I know Coach Stratton's here, who coached baseball for a time. He got to the third baseline, and he hopped over it. And why did he do that? Because it's a superstition in baseball, if you step on the line, when you're walking out to talk to your pitcher, bad things are going to happen. So my dad was my inspiration for taking pictures and for being a photographer. And that's his old hand on a very old bat that he used to hit balls to me and my brother with when we were kids growing up. So here's the inspiration. My second word of the day is patience. Now, we've all had to learn patience in our life. I still struggle with it sometimes. Photography is an interesting thing. Photography is immediate. Photography is intuitive. Photography is knowledge-based. It's part luck, and it's a lot of patience. I learned patience by going down to Redwood Elementary School and watching the Eagles. This is a picture of December 2014, and my Redwood fans in the audience will recognize this is the pin oak tree that the Eagles have built a nest in. This was 8 years ago. There's like less than a dozen sticks in that nest. This is when they started it. A friend of mine, Gary Jerome, told me, hey Ron, 2 bald eagles are starting to nest down the street at Redwood. I live a half a mile from this school. All 4 of my kids went to this school. I noticed that when Bob Scott said, anybody over 40 years stand up, that Sue Christian and Rob Matty stood up today. Doesn't mean you're old, Sue. You still look great. Even though you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you still look great. But this is Redwood Elementary School, and this is where I learned patience, as I'm learning right now with my clicker. So this is the nest this spring. How much it's grown. Just like how you see the kids grow from the time that they leave elementary school to the time that they graduate here from high school. I think that this nest is a lot like what we do with our kids. Patience. Pretty picture, right? Happened on a Sunday morning about 7 a.m., the sun rising in the east. Happened shortly after I got there. But I have learned that I could wait 4 hours and nothing could happen. Or I could be there for 4 minutes and everything happens. So through photography, you got to be ready for when the moment happens. One of my favorite pictures. You see the fish? You see the eyes, how they're lined up? It's not like I said to the eagle, hey, could you put your eye a little bit more this way? And could you grab that fish and move it a little bit this way? Because the linear thing going on right there is amazing. This happened not late at night, 8 o'clock. It was already kind of dusky and dark. And I really had to boost my camera to get enough light into it to get that shot. But the patience of waiting for something magical to happen worked. Now here's the story. This is at 3 a.m. at Redwood Elementary School in the middle of the winter. Now, I broke the law, Officer Hurd and Officer DeCento, because I jumped over the fence. But here's the deal. I was down at Ohio State visiting my son Riley, and I was coming home late that night. Like after midnight I was leaving. And I had never had coffee before in my life. True story. And I said to Riley, I don't know if I can get home. So I went to the coffee shop nearby, and I got 2 espresso shots, plus a large, straight black and hot coffee. Well, I was wired for like the next 2 days. I couldn't sleep. So when I'm driving home that night, when I talked about photography and having intuition, I'm noticing it's a clear night. There's a full moon. It's the winter. There are no leaves on the tree. If I got a shot at getting an eagle sitting in a branch, and if I could frame it with the full moon behind it, tonight's the night. I'm jacked up on coffee. I'm not going to go to sleep. So I might as well go home and jump the fence at Redwood Elementary School. So I did. And that eagle is calling out to an owl that lives in the trees behind Redwood Elementary School. The owl is the eagle's #1 enemy. And there I was in the moment. Nobody but me. Air is cool. I can see my breath. The eagle and the owl are having an argument at 3 o'clock in the morning with the full moon. I mean, that's luck, too. It's luck that it was there. I still drink coffee. I haven't had any today yet. Patience. April, snowstorm. How many snowstorms do we get in April? At least once every year. That kind of thick, wet snow that hangs to the branches. I go down to the school, and I hope that an eagle's there, then I wait for it to take off so I can get that snow flying. Patience. What is that? It's a squirrel. There is one thing you don't want to be in Avon Lake in the winter when the lake freezes over, and that's a squirrel. Because the eagle can't go to the lake and get fish, so it's looking for you, Mr. Squirrel. Silhouette. I love silhouettes. You got to watch yourself if you're at Redwood. They fly low. And then the last one. That's a baseball. Tying it into my dad. You know, I went to that eagle's nest in late November, early December of 2014, 2 weeks after my dad passed. The eagles were my therapy. They didn't know it, I didn't know it, but they were. So I thought it was fitting to end the patience one with the baseball. Sue Christian left that sitting there for me so that they'd pick it up and I could get that picture. Sue didn't know she was going to be part of my presentation today. Contentment. I have a problem sleeping. I can't sleep. I've tried everything. I've tried that white noise thing. I've tried journaling for my active mind before I go to bed. Stacy bought me a pregnancy pillow. Not that I'm pregnant. That would be a story. You know, but it's long and it keeps you from rolling over. So I go to the doctor and I said, Doc, I can't sleep. I don't know what to do. And the doc says, well, tell me, Ron, why do you think you can't sleep? And I said, Doc, that's why I'm here to see you. You're supposed to tell me why I can't sleep. Well, we couldn't figure it out. And I still can't sleep. So what I do is I get up early every morning, and I get in my truck, and I drive. And I just end up somewhere. This particular morning, I end up in Amish country, just outside of Lorain County by Black River High School. It's 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. I pull in. The Amish farmer's got carpentry, hardwood floor sign on his front porch, and I say, I'd like to talk to you about hardwood flooring. Well, it turns into a friendship. And I find out that he heats his own house by burning wood that he cuts down. And I told him, I said, I want to go cut wood with you guys one day. So I go out one early morning, be here at daybreak, he says, and him and his 2 nephews and me go out to the back part of their property with their Belgian work horses, and from daybreak to darkness, we cut wood. We cut wood ash trees and oak trees that they are going to burn in their house to keep them warm during the winter. This is first week of December. It's cold. It's like 38 degrees. There's frost. And those are our tools of the day. Two-man cross-cut saw, an axe, a sledgehammer, and 5 wedges. Now the Amish, depending on what level of Amish, don't like to have their picture taken where you can see their face. Feels they steal your soul. So the deal with me was, Ron, we can cut wood with you, you can take pictures, but you can't show anybody. So I had to get creative as a photographer. This is Abraham. He's 16 years old. That's his cousin Joseph. They're going into the woods with our tools of the trade. And they're taking the Belgian horses in too, because we would cut down trees and then we would drag them out with the horses. And the reason I use the term contentment to start this piece is because these two young men and their parents have spent their entire lives without electricity, without cell phones, without music, without television, without light with the exception of candles at night, without heat with the exception of what they burn with their wood, without refrigeration except for the exception of huge ice blocks that they put their food on. And they're content. And I found it fascinating. We would cut down huge trees. I can't wrap my arms around that one. A 16-year-old and a 14-year-old and me. Andy left, and I'm like, okay. And these two kids were fantastic. One's from a family of 12, the other one's from a family of 10. These are the Belgian workhorses that they have. Beautiful, isn't it? They'd cut down the tree, they'd wrap it up with a chain, and if you were in the way of those Belgian horses, when they gave it the call to go, you were going to get run over. Near the end of the day, there's the bull. Andy's walking me out in an open field. There's nowhere to go. There's a bull sitting there, and he goes, Ron, he said, I don't think anything will happen. He says, but every now and then that bull gets a little feisty. He said, so if he charges us, you got to be ready. And I said, Andy, what do I do if the bull charges me? He said, run. He goes, also, you can take your hat and you can throw it to distract the bull. People tell us that that works, but I don't know if they're right. Splitting wood. End of the day. Sun up, sun down. They do it every day. I went home that night and had a warm shower. And I remember driving home in my truck thinking, I can't wait to have the warm shower. And I also thought, they're not going to give me. Next word is challenge. We all look for a challenge in our life, right? Way to make ourselves better, way to test ourselves. Don't fall into complacency. Well, Officer DeCenzo and Officer Hurd, here's another example of Ron Jantz breaking the law. If you know the Sheriff's Department, please don't share this story with them. Anybody have an idea on what this is? Quarry hole. It's a quarry hole in South Amherst. From 1847 to 1992, they quarried sandstone in 8 quarry holes in South Amherst that built the country, really. When the Great Chicago Fire happened in 1871, they rebuilt Chicago with sandstone, partially from the quarries of South Amherst. Well, the quarries are off limits. No trespassing signs everywhere. But I like to go places sometimes that I'm told I can't be, because you find beauty there. That's what the water looks like with the reflection of the fall colors on a sunny Sunday morning. You'll notice that the pattern for me is doing things early in the morning, because as I said, I can't sleep. They had over 2,000 people that they employed in the quarry holes in its heyday, and there are remnants all over this property of days gone by. Isn't that beautiful? Nothing crazy about that picture other than the great beautiful light of a morning and the remnants of an old quarry hole. 240 feet deep, this one is. Deepest quarry hole in the United States of America. You got to be careful. You don't want to fall into an unsuspecting hole. It's the only place I go where I actually tell my wife where I'm going. Because the deal is, Stacy knows, if I'm not home by a certain time, send somebody to the quarry hole and see if you see Ron's dead floating body out there somewhere. Old rail, old cast iron. Winter time becomes more of a challenge in the winter because you don't want to slip and you don't want to fall. And if you're a photographer, you like to live on the edge a little bit, and the edge of a quarry hole is not a good place to be if you're going to fall. And I end the quarries with this picture. This is it's a flat morning. Again, recognizing intuition. No wind today. Water's going to be flat. You can't get that reflection unless you're there in that moment. Courage. Courage is the next word. We all have courage, right? Drives us in our life. These are the railroad tracks outside the house that I grew up in on Crook Street in Grafton. They're the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad tracks, the old B&O. I grew up on these tracks. They were literally 10 yards from my house. 20 maybe. I used to run on those rails. I used to put pennies on those rails. And the trains would come down with wheat and grain and take them to the flour mill in Grafton, where my grandfather was. So when I'm out and about on mornings when I can't sleep and I see railroad tracks, I stop and take pictures of them. Because I truly think that they're symbolic in how I live my life. I don't know if this track is going to lead to a good thing, but I think it will, so I'm going to take the risk. That's early morning out in the farm. Sun rising. I need to stand over here. This picture, I think, is symbolic. This is Vermilion. This is sunset. Look what the sunset did to the rail. I mean, it lit it up like it was gold. And the reason I think it's symbolic, because a lot of times in life we see things that we think are gold. You know, we want to go somewhere, we think it's going to be great, or we have an offer that cannot be refused, and it's fool's gold. And we have to make those decisions. We have the courage to say no or to say yes. And that's why I selected this shot for this series. And then the courage to go to the bright lights. A lot of us don't want to be in the bright light. We just rather soon just fade away in our life, and that's okay. I want to move to North Dakota one day where there's nobody to talk to me. I really do. Stacy knows when I come home after a rough day, if I say, we're moving to North Dakota, she knows that's code for I've had enough. Some of us don't want to go to the bright light. And then my last one for courage, I'm sorry, two more. This one, the different directions we can go to in our life. There's a rail that leads you here, a rail that leads you there, somewhere else. We need to make a choice. Sometimes it can be confusing. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. But we have to make a choice. We have to have the courage to move forward. And then final one on that. The courage to move forward to the light that we see and hope that it's not a train set to run us over. Now that wasn't a train coming my way. This is Avon Lake right here, by the way. This tracks Route 83. You go over it, you leave Avon Lake, and you go into south. That's the track. If you look to your east, there's bushy trees down there. This is the morning light. At a certain time of the year, the sun rises right off of those rails. And that's right here. I mean, I hope what you get out of this today is that look around you. Every day in life, when you go to work, when you walk in your neighborhood, open your eyes, keep your head up, eyes wide open. You'll see things that you've never seen before. Joy. We're all looking for joy. What's the number one picture that will make everybody smile other than a puppy dog? Baby, or a little girl with a tooth missing in her front of her mouth. This is Liv Flynn. Liv lives in Penfield Township. Her parents own a farm that whenever I need to feel like I want to go to North Dakota, I just go to Penfield Township. They have 1,100 acres. They allow me to come out there and walk and take pictures. This is Liv's mom. Her maiden name's Gordon. It's the Gordon family farm. One day when Liv takes it over, she'll be the third generation. She'll be the 100th year of that farm. And as you can see, that day there were pretty cover crops along the field. And Adele texted me and said, Ron, we've got some pretty flowers here today. I think you might like to come out. Because they know that I look for good pictures and they give me tips every now and then out on the farm. Well, this is my picture for Joy. Liv and her mom were picking wildflowers for Stacy, my wife. And I wanted to get a good angle on Liv in silhouette with the sun behind her. But if I'm standing up, I'm going to get too much ground and not enough sky to silhouette Liv. So what did I do? I laid down in the manure field of the Flynn family farm to get that angle. But sometimes it's worth it. Joy, simple joy, blowing a dandelion. I know a lot of you have young kids. Maybe some of you have grandchildren. Take a dandelion out when it's in its stage of decay and just simply enjoy it that way. And then Liv loves to feed her cow. This is Banana, 2,000 pounds worth of cow. Banana would do anything for Liv because when Banana was little, when Banana was born, Banana's mother died during birth. Liv literally fed Banana by a bottle, nurtured her as she grew. And the Flynn family raises cows. They've got like 150 cows. They raise them to then sell them to butchers who then, you know, I love a good porterhouse steak. Actually, I buy my steaks from the Flynns. But this one, Banana will never be sold, Liv's dad told me. Liv's going to stay, the Banana's going to stay in their life forever. I just love this picture. There's Adele, the mom. There's Eric, the dad. They are birthing a calf right there. It's like in the old days when I was born. They take forceps and grab my head and pull me out of my mother. This is what they're doing with that cow. And then look at Liv. Can you see Liv? She's like, wow, look at that. I thought that was awesome. Now I got this going for me. Because of my relationship with the Flynns, they had me out to shoot pictures of a C-section. They had a cow that had to have a C-section because things just weren't happening. And this was the calf that was born, and they named it Ronnie. How many of you got a cow named after you? Now, come on, really. Perspective. Man, we all need perspective in life, right? I think perspective is one of my favorite words. How you look at things. You can choose to look at it in a negative way. You can choose to look at it in a positive way. It's up to you. Perspective. This is Sandy Ridge in North Ridgeville. The perspective, or the reason I use perspective for this, I was driving into work. It's a foggy morning. It's so foggy I can barely see in front of me. I always have my camera in my car. I said, you know what? It's not beautiful sunshine. There's not an opportunity for a great sunrise. Actually, it's cold and damp because of the fog. But I'm going to walk the mile back to the wetlands at Sandy Ridge and see what I can see in the fog. Now, I'm wondering how this is going to show up because it's so foggy that... What do you see there? Just shout out. What do you think you see? What do you think this is right here? It's an old tree, but doesn't it look like some sort of prehistoric animal or a fish or a piranha or something coming to eat you? That's an old tree laying in the water of the wetlands with a Canadian goose going by. Perspective. This is the one that I didn't think would show up. There's a duck in the middle of that. You can't see it. And I'm disappointed that you can't. But it's in the fog. Creepy old tree. My point being here is that I went out there that morning, on a morning that most photographers would say, there's nothing going on today. That's a mallard duck. Again, the fog was so thick you could barely see things. But I still went out there. Cardinal. Red cardinal, white fog day. Nobody else around. I didn't know what a cardinal meant until my dad passed away. And a friend of mine painted a cardinal, gave it to us, told me the story. And then as I'm walking out of the woods, what's that? That's a great horned owl. Isn't that kind of creepy looking, right? Out there in the middle of the woods, nobody else is around. See that thing? It's like something from Stranger Things. I'm waiting for it to blow up and eat me. Ego. Ego is the next word. Everybody needs a little bit of ego. I don't care what you say. Now, you don't want it to get to the level of Kyrie Irving, where you dismantle every team that you go to because your ego is so big. But everybody needs a little ego. It's how you manage it that controls how successful, how positive you're going to be. So what could I do for ego? Well, I thought, you know what? There's a tree that's nearly 300 years old. If there's anybody that deserves to have an ego, it's the tree, right? This tree is in Vermilion on a friend of mine's property. It is nearly 300 years old. It was born before the Revolutionary War, before our country was born. It was thriving during the Civil War, when our country almost destroyed itself. Look how big and thick that is. It takes 8 large men holding their arms out, like I have them right now, holding hands to go around that tree. I don't know how the exact girth of it, but the owner, a friend of mine, says it takes 8 of us. He's a big guy. He's bigger than me. 8 of us holding our hands to go around that tree. I'm better over here. I figured that out. Stay over here. That looks like a huge bicep to me coming up. I mean, look at that thing. It's a healthy tree. This tree has ego. It stands strong today as a beacon of history. Its arms reach to the heavens. I shot it on a naked day. I like to call it a naked day. Not that I was naked when I shot it. But on a day where there are no leaves, nothing on the branches, because then I think you really get the revelation, or you really get to, I mean, think about us. When we're really broken down, when we have nothing to cover us up, nothing to hide behind, that's when we oftentimes see our real us, or our real people that we're affiliated with. When you're all just bare, tree. I love to shoot naked trees. There's the last shot. Look at this branch. This is a branch. This isn't a tree. This is a branch coming off of that tree. Commitment. We all need to make commitments in our life. Sometimes that's hard. To stay the course. To face the battles. To experience the highs and the lows and still have that will and the desire to keep moving forward. And for commitment, I picked, can you guys see the butterfly? What kind of butterfly is that? It's a monarch butterfly. This is in a field in Bay Village, south side of Huntington Beach, across the street from Huntington Beach. That if you go now and into September, this field is gold and yellow like this. I haven't been there this year, but this was September when I took this picture. And the monarch butterflies flock to this field. So my commitment to them was try to get a picture of a monarch butterfly in flight. Because that's hard. You can't be right next to it because it'll fly away before you have a chance. You have to be away from it. Then you have to sit, wait, go back to patience for that butterfly to fly. And I would go morning after morning before I'd go to work. I'd drive to the field and look for the monarchs and wait for them to fly. And I was by myself. I like to say in silence. My wife thinks I'm ridiculous when I come home and I'd say, it was great, but there were too many people there and some people were talking, and she laughs at me because they're my silent stealers, is what I say. They steal my silence. She thinks it's awful rich of me to think that I should have silence whenever I'm around. But I look for silence in my commitment to the monarch butterflies. Do you know that 2 weeks ago they were placed on the endangered list? 2 weeks ago, the monarch butterflies were placed on the endangered list. They are down 85% of their population in the last 2 decades. If you want to see monarchs, look for milkweed, look for pretty flowers. They love the nectar, and that's where they come. Risk. How many of us have taken a risk in our life? Everybody, right? The great temptation. Should I do this? Should I not? That looks really exciting. Maybe it's not. For risk, I picked going out to the lighthouse in Lorraine to take pictures. The Lorraine Lighthouse was built in 1917. It's 105 years old. It was in operation until 1965. There was a person in the lighthouse until 1965. It's no longer in operation, but it still existed. It's still beautiful, and it is listed as the #1 lighthouse on the Great Lakes of Lake Erie of the Great Lakes, 9 years running. Well, the risk here is to take this picture on a stormy night. All right? When I talked about being intuitive, I pay attention to the weather. Wind's going to blow. Wind's going to blow out of the east. Wind's going to hit that break wall out of the east and make these waves crash up and make them look like they're hitting the lighthouse. If the wind blows out of the north, if the wind blows out of the west, I don't get this moment, because that just doesn't happen. It can't happen physically. But I have to walk out to a certain spot. Now, you can go to the lighthouse, walk down the mile-long pier, and shoot a picture of the lighthouse any night of the week. But if you walk through the swamp and through the wetland and through that marshy area on a wet, cold evening or morning, and you stand on wet, slippery rocks to get the right angle to get these shots, then that's your risk. I do tell Stacy when I'm going to the lighthouse and it's a cold day, because if I fall and slip on the rocks and crack my head or fall into the ice, at least she'll know where I'm at. You know that Apple Watch thing that sends out a distress signal? I think she should get me that for our wedding anniversary in 5 days. Dead of the winter. Look at the ice sculptures out there. Doesn't that look like a congregation of ghosts or something? My whole point today is when you see this picture, you think one thing, I think another, and that's beautiful, because we're all thinking and we're all seeing something, and it's just taken to us a place that, hopefully makes you feel good. Had to really lay down to get that angle. Stormy night. That light goes off every 6 seconds. See the light on the lighthouse? It's another thing you learn as a photographer if you're paying attention. I mean, I can take the picture of that lighthouse, but I want the light on while I'm taking it, right? That red light, that red distress light. So I count in my head. When it goes off, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I snap. I've gotten pretty good at that. Gratitude. Just got 2 left. How am I doing on time, Jack? Okay. I think it's important that we have gratitude in our lives. That we're thankful for things, that we recognize things that we're thankful for, that we see them, we identify them, and then we let people know that we're grateful or that we're thankful. Gratitude for me is getting up early in the morning and finding sunrise. My kids call me snobbish because I'm a sunrise snob, they say. I'll come home, they're still sleeping. They get up. How was sunrise today, Dad? It was a B-. Because I really want something special for sunrise. And when I go out, this is pre-sunrise. You need clouds like you had this morning. They turn color. This is 20 minutes before sunrise. I think it's the most magical time of the day, 20 minutes before sunrise. Now, if that's in the summertime when sunrise is at like 5:15, that means it's like 4:55. If it's now when sunrise is at 6:30, 6:35, it's a little bit more manageable. Old steel mills in Lorraine shut down, Black River in front of me. Nobody around. Nobody even knows where the spot is, I don't think. I go down a street that I'm not supposed to go down, Officer Hurd. But it's all about the angle for me. And it's about the moment of being alone, hearing the birds chirp, hearing the wind blow, If it's cold and there's frost or snow on the ground, hearing it crackle underneath your feet as you walk, and just having peace in your own thoughts. This is right here in Avon Lake. This is down at Veterans Park. This is on a stormy, sunny morning before the sunrise on a magical mix of gray clouds, big waves, a wet rock that was reflecting the light of the sky on the rock. That might not happen again. As a matter of fact, I have not seen a sunrise down at Veterans Park, and I'm there almost every day like that again. Simple cornfield. You know, we take simple things for granted in our lives. I'm grateful for a simple cornfield in July, actually late August, because you want them a little higher, you know, where you can see the glow of the morning sun. Again, the sun hasn't come up yet in this shot. This is before it comes up. This is just behind the college at Lorain County Community College. It's backlit by the sun. The sun's actually up in this one. If you look at the top of my picture, in the cloud that goes across the top, you can see the bottom part of the sun. But it's backlighting everything. It takes my breath away. This is just the other day. Steel mills of downtown Cleveland, along Clark and 11th, before sunrise. Now, when I park in a neighborhood like Clark and 11th, I park with my car facing out, so I can get out quickly if I need to. Not that it's a bad neighborhood, but it's about the picture for me. Old tree, farmer's field. I called the farmer, stopped at his house, knocked on the door. I do that a lot. If I stop at your house and knock on the door, just humor me, indulge me for a moment. Hey, could I come out to your field one day and shoot sunrise with that tree? I just want to let you know so you don't shoot me with your shotgun because there's some guy out in my field. And then this, my last sunrise photo that I'm going to show you today, that's the sun. That's not the lamp of the bulb of the lamp. This is at Lakewood Park. And again, eyes wide open, head up while you're walking through life. I'm walking by the lamp and I go, wait a second, if I get the certain angle, if I walk to a certain spot and get to a certain height, I can position that sun right underneath the lamp, and it looks like it's the bulb. It's the simple things in life. And then the last one in my presentation this morning is legacy. Jack, Julie, Short, Bob Scott had asked, you know, it's a legacy year here in Avon Lake. We're celebrating our 100th year of Avon Lake City Schools. You should all feel extremely proud about that, for being a part of a great school system, not only in the state of Ohio, but in the country. I know I'm proud to say that I live here, that my children went to school here. So when I thought about legacy, when they said, Ron, if you could tie legacy somehow into your presentation, I thought, well, what's the most simple and honest way for me to tie legacy in? And it's a picture of my kids. All four. See, I started with a little emotion with my dad, and I'm going to end with a little emotion. That's why you do things at the end or the beginning, because, you know, you get past it, then everything's all right. All four are graduates of Avon Lake City Schools. My son Riley, oldest daughter Julia, third child Caroline, and our baby Maggie. All four Redwood Elementary School kids, all four Troy Intermediate School kids, all four Learwood Junior High kids, all four Avon Lake High School graduates. And I share this with you because not only are they my legacy, but honestly they're yours too. Because of the impact that you have made in their lives as a teacher, as a coach, as a bus driver, as a maintenance person. Anybody and everybody makes an impact on the kids that you guys teach and touch every day. So I just want to thank you.